And it isn't passing that's the weak skill, it's receiving. So when we talked about Johanny Walston's progression, eye contact, 1, 2, 3, 3 pucks in a circle with 6 players on the outside passing to each other. And when you have 3 pucks, the 2 pucks go to 1 player. They have to learn to look, see there's a player available, and make that pass. The next 2 drills build on that progression. This can be taught. So I think at the minor hockey level, there's some cardinal fundamental teaching drills and skill progressions that sort of are not, well, they're not ignored. They're sort of unknown and left up to skill experts to work on those fundamental skills. And many of them work on more advanced skills than they do fundamental skills. So with minor hockey coaches, I'm saying teach those skills, let them play, count passes. You might have a chance for success versus trying to really get good at teaching every aspect. You might be a better coach because of it. So
on that theme, Wally, it's not only teaching, it's got to be stressed consistently, persistently throughout the whole course of the season, and reinforced. You can't teach it and say that's accomplished and move on and never refer back to it again, and that's a mistake that I see made far too often.
The coaches you're watching out in your community, just generalize as a group, all of them. How would you rank their teaching ability from 1 to 10?
Well, like any group, you've got some that are better and some that are not quite as good, largely based on experience as much as anything, in my opinion. But overall, yeah, if you're averaging it out in the 4 or 5 category, and it's not so much that they're not teaching, it's that they're teaching in very narrow areas. They're not teaching the broad part of the game. And as I said briefly earlier, they teach it and move on to something else as if it's ingrained now and never to be referred to again, when in reality, there's a constant reminder and a reinforcement that needs to go on again, in my opinion. That's where I've had my most success.
Tom, have you got anything to add, given the entire session and your wisdom?
Well, I think, like Rick says, you have to always return to things. You know, Terry Johnson he would always say you need at least 3 times before they'll catch on to the concept, you know, if you're introducing something new. So that was one of his things. I just think, you know, like you're doing all those passing games like I do, but, you know, you can also have passing games that only 1 pass is allowed in the offensive zone and that player has to score. You know, or goals are only allowed on given goals and things like that. So you know, you've got to vary what you're doing to get all the get the whole complete game you're trying to teach. So it's we all know they all learn at different speeds and they come from different backgrounds, and and then if they're getting $10 a goal, they might not want to pass. That's something that happens too.
Yeah.
So,
it's the art. It's the art. Part of the art of coaching is the balance between, because repetition is for sure a big part of like learning a new skill, learning a new way to think. Like you got to be put in the situations a number of times. So repetition is really important, but keeping things fresh and doing things different is also important.
Well, teaching the same thing from different angles.
Yeah, different
using
way.
a different drill or different exercise.
Yeah.
Tom, you mentioned the parents that pay their kids to score, and I think you can add grandparents to that list.
you guilty?
Sounds like someone speaking from experience.
Yeah. Anyway, I haven't fallen into that trap. My daughter has,
Mm.
paying her daughter, my granddaughter. But I have to comment on Cassie Campbell's mother. When I did that mission statement exercise, she spoke to that. We had done the mission statement exercise, and she got up and said, when Cassie played minor hockey, people were paying kids to score goals. And she spoke up and paid them for every assist. And that sort of changed the mindset is keep track of that. Because what we're talking about here is that, yes, we have to score. That is the most important outcome, but it's not going to happen without the other. So we're trying to take hockey from 1-on-5 hockey to being drafted and being caught to really learning how to play the game. And we're a long for ways from it because, you know, as parents, we're human. We want our kids to grow and develop, and we don't realize that hockey is a very unselfish, selfish game where you own the puck and protect it.
Well, Wally, we just, we're talking about that taka-taka that Spain used, right? It's all one touch.
Yeah.
And always being in triangles. The games are so similar. And to get a lot of good ideas, because there's so, hundreds of millions of people playing soccer.
Yeah.
That's a real resource, the kind of things they do.
Yeah.
Because again, the games are really, really similar.
I have to mention John Castelloni. He's a soccer coach. I've seen him more national team practices and pro practices taking notes. And he has presented at Hockey Alberta. He's run ice times and off ice times at Hockey Alberta. This past week, my daughter was in Manitoba for the U of M camp. He was running it. Somehow he crossed paths with the high performance coach of the team, a girl from Mexico who had played pro in Spain, and he ran the ice time. So my son-in-law sent me a picture of him with the granddaughter, and he talked about what he did. All games, all small area competitive varieties of games with one rule: no walking. If you walked, you did push-ups. You had to keep moving, keep jogging and running. But when you walked, he says he wanted that mentality of staying alert and being aware, and physically demanded a lot more of all of them. The game's taught. And I think that's the bottom line here.
Is Dean's good friend.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to getting a hold of John again, and I may bring him on as a guest to talk about what he does in the game of hockey and the game of soccer and comparison, and he'd be a great speaker because he can talk hockey as much as he can talk soccer, but he can overlap and bridge the gap and bring that connection between. I mean, he was on to small area games before anybody else was. And this University of Manitoba team, they ran some pretty good practices, but nothing like this camp has just opened the eyes of the coaching staff and myself and the parents who were there. So really good to have you guys on today. It's I just want to give you a heads up. I'm on top of things medically. I'm wearing an arm sleeve. It's a compression sleeve, $100, and the swelling's going down, and the range of movement is improving. And I'm back on my blood thinners. I've cut it in half to what it was, and I'm hoping to be back in normal. Going to Kyle's ice time tonight with his U11 team. So still in the game. Jordan, are you there at the rink yet, or? Okay, he's got his elementary school minor hockey class
Oh,
going.
there he is.
Yeah, we're here, Wally. We're
Okay,
just offloaded off the bus, and I was going to mention to you that had a quick conversation with Al Andrews this morning. He is heading towards Quebec City for a showcase there with a team, and they're excited about what's going on this spring with them. And one of the conversations we had ties into the passing piece with what I call 1-versus-5 hockey instead of one-on-one hockey, where it goes to the awareness piece, and that players aren't aware. They're aware that there are 5 players on the other team, but they're not necessarily aware that they have 4 others on their own that they can take advantage of. It just looks like they're trying to beat the other team by themselves. And that's kind of what you and I saw the other day in that spring hockey. So it's something we've got to combat against.
Mason's very early video showed that. It showed the people away from the puck and what they were doing just before they got possession. So they were moving to support positions, anticipating transition and participating in turnover. And that's the one thing I got out of this is the awareness level of that level of play. It was beyond my expectations.